It's Sunday morning with Mark Sainsbury.
Okay, Doctor, give me the news. Yes, we're going straight to Dr. Harold Hillman now for his latest take in business. Of course, Harold Hillman is a leadership coach, author, celebrity speaker. As I've mentioned before, we stole him from the States. He gave up that cushy life in Manhattan to come and work for Fonterra, and since then has been advising companies and company chairs and boards all around the country about whatever's happening in business. And you can check out his website, sigmoidcurve.com. Good morning, Harold.
Good morning, Mark.
Okay, cynicism.
Yes, cynicism. It's something that it's pretty common in a lot of companies. These are the folks who've been around for a while, so they've been around enough to connect the dots between different initiatives that are supposed to be taking care of the same thing that were problems a few years ago. So they tend to feed off of that gap between high expectations and the inability to deliver. And it's a mindset, Mark. It's that person who pulls the newcomer aside and says, hey, kid, come over here and let me tell you why it is that, you need to just sort of lower your expectations.
Look, we've all seen this, and sometimes they actually sound quite right. But what's the difference between a cynic and a skeptic?
Well, cynicism tends to be more general and it tends to be more pervasive. So you get a sense that no matter where you are, whether you're with the person at a cricket game or at work or in some kind of a social event, they always tend to take the view of it boils down to trust, Mark, in the sense that they are somewhat suspicious of other people's motives, and so buying into something is hard. Whereas with a skeptic, you have a person who's focused on a specific issue or proposal, and they are skeptical, but it tends to be based more on that scenario as opposed to more of a general outlook.
Harold, does cynics, they tend to be further down the tree?
They do.
Because it's a bit hard to be cynical if you're the boss, isn't it?
It is, but it does happen, Mark, and that's one of the things that you want to keep your eye on. But you're absolutely right. It is more pervasive the further down the food chain. Absolutely. There are some demographics, Mark, associated with that. Now, age is a factor. There's younger people in the workforce, defined as under 25, tend to be a little bit more cynical than those who are considered to be middle-aged in the workforce.
Really? I would have thought it'd be the other way around. It'd be the world weary going, oh, God.
Well, what's happening there is that younger people who tend to have more idealistic standards are just calibrating, and they're bringing their standards down a little bit to what would be considered more realism. And by the time they're in their middle age, they are more settled in terms of that. But, Mark, the age category that you want to get most concerned about are those over 55.
Uh-oh.
Yes, because cynicism does tend to correlate with age, and the older we get.
Could it just be... Well, see, then what's the difference between cynicism and experience? Oh, I've seen this all. And you hear it, don't you? Boss comes in, there's something, we're now going to be dealing... Oh, how many times have we seen this?
It is a matter of perspective, and you have to watch your tone, particularly if you are a manager. You have been around long enough with experience to be able to know what pitfalls not to fall into, but you don't want that sense of pessimism or that sense of we're doomed for failure to be pervasive. And if you are a manager, it just amplifies more.
Because you can almost handle one cynic in there, because in some ways it's sort of a check. Oh God, what's
right.
this? But if you're getting a number of them, then it's disaster, isn't it?
Well, it can become part of a culture, Mark, and so a person who comes in relatively optimistic and wanting to do good, if it's, it's like the new kid who wants to be accepted, and so he wants to be accepted by the cool kids, and the cool kids are the ones who can't ostensibly, sign up for what the authority is proposing. So I do find that there's sometimes very optimistic people who are masquerading as cynics because they get the impression that that's going to keep them in the in-group. It can become a problem if you've got, 2 or 3 relatively powerful cynics, meaning not necessarily in rank, but in mana or sort of status with the group, and people start adjusting their behaviors accordingly.
But can you, look, if you start finding yourself getting more and more cynical, can you nip it in the bud?
You can. It's important to do it. And this is what self-awareness is all about, Mark. You can't really see or hear yourself unless other people are pointing it out. So there is some value in terms of feedback. But, a person who's cynical probably will notice that people don't necessarily gravitate towards them easily. That people start avoiding them. There is this sense of negativity. It affects their own degree of energy, their own attitude. They tend to be flat, that word disengaged, all of those kinds of things. It's important to be a cross mindset because mindset, particularly since we do spend the majority of our lives at work, if you add up all the hours, physical and psychological, that you spend at work, it's a huge chunk of your life. And if you're caught in that negative mindset that, people are out to get you or you can't trust the decisions of managers and those types of things, it can become a real draining, effect not only on other individuals around you, but on yourself.
Another insight in the business. Good on you, Harold. Dr. Harold Hillman. And, of course, check out Harold's website, www.sigmoidcurve.com.